16-year-old Dino is standing in the wings of his father's TV show, and he's absolutely terrified. In about 90 seconds, he's going to walk onto that stage in front of 20 million people and do the one thing his father hates most in this world: play rock and roll, the music his father has spent months publicly mocking on national television, the music his father calls organized noise, and Dino has no idea what's about to happen. Will his father humiliate him on live TV? Will he support him? Or will he do something nobody sees coming? Because what Dean Martin says in the next 3 minutes will shock everyone watching, and what he says privately, when the cameras stop rolling, will define their relationship for the next 30 years. Let me paint the picture for you. It's September 1965. The Dean Martin Show is one of the biggest shows on television. 20 million viewers every single week. Families gather around their TV sets on Thursday nights at 10 p.m. to watch Dean do his thing. Walk on stage with a drink, tell jokes, sing a few songs, make it all look effortless. Dean Martin is at the absolute peak of his power in 1965. He has complete creative control over his show. If Dean doesn't want something on his program, it doesn't happen, period. And there's one thing Dean Martin absolutely does not want on his show: rock and roll. Dean Martin hates rock and roll, not in a casual, I don't really like it way. He genuinely, deeply despises it. He thinks it's destroying music. He thinks it's talentless noise, and he's made his feelings very clear on previous episodes. When the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan and broke viewership records, Dean joked on his show, "I watched that Beatles thing, couldn't tell if they were boys or girls, couldn't tell if they were singing or yelling, but teenage girls were screaming, so I guess it's music." When the Rolling Stones released their early records, Dean played a clip and said, "I think my television's broken. That can't be music. That's just noise with hair." Dean wasn't trying to be cruel. It was comedy. His audience ate it up, but underneath the jokes was real disdain. Dean believed in craftsmanship, in learning to sing properly, in orchestras and arrangements, and real musicianship. Rock and roll, to Dean, was kids with guitars making noise. No talent required, no skill, just volume and screaming. Dean represented the old guard, the Sinatra generation, the crooners, the professionals, and rock and roll was the enemy, the barbarians at the gate, the end of real music. But Dean's son didn't see it that way. Dean Paul Martin Jr., everyone called him Dino, born in 1951, Dean's son from his second marriage to Jean Beager. By 1965, Dino is 14 years old, about to turn 15, and Dino loves his father, idolizes him. But Dino also loves the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys. That's his music, his generation's music. In early 1965, Dino decides to start a band. His best friend is Desi Arnaz Jr., son of Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz Sr. They grew up together, both celebrity kids, both rebelling against their famous parents' music. They recruit Billy Hinchy, a talented guitarist and singer, and they form a band, Dino, Desi, and Billy. They start playing Beatles covers, Rolling Stones songs, Beach Boys harmonies, rehearsing in Dino's garage, playing at school dances. And they're good, really good, not just good for kids, actually talented, tight harmonies, solid musicianship. When Dino tells his father about the band, Dean's reaction is exactly what you'd expect. "A rock band, son? Why? You've got a good voice. You could learn to sing properly. Why waste it on that garbage?" Dino tries to explain. "Dad, this is what kids my age listen to. This is our music. It's not music. It's noise. You don't have to like it, but I'm doing it." Dean doesn't forbid it. He could have. But Dean has a philosophy about parenting. Let your kids make their own mistakes. So Dean says, okay, let Dino waste his time with this rock band. He'll grow out of it. Except Dino doesn't grow out of it. Dino, Desi, and Billy get better. They start getting noticed. A record producer sees them perform at a school dance, offers them a deal. In June 1965, Dino, Desi, and Billy release their first single, a song called "I'm a Fool." It's pure 1960s rock, Beatles-influenced, catchy, upbeat, and it becomes a hit. Not a massive hit, but it charts. It gets radio play. Teenage girls start buying the record. By September 1965, Dino, Desi, and Billy are becoming famous, not Beatles level famous, but famous enough that people recognize them, that teenage magazines write about them, that girls scream when they see them, and NBC has an idea. Put Dino, Desi, and Billy on the Dean Martin show. It's perfect, right? Dean's son's band performing on Dean's show. Great publicity, great ratings, a family moment. The producers pitch it to Dean, and Dean says, "No, I'm not putting a rock band on my show. Dean, it's your son's band. I don't care. It's still rock music, and I'm not promoting that garbage." But the NBC executives push. This is good for the show, the father-son angle. The ratings will be huge. Dean resists for weeks, but eventually he agrees, not because he wants to, but because he realizes if he says no, he'd be rejecting his son publicly. And Dean, despite hating the music, loves Dino. So Dean says yes, but he makes it clear, "I'm doing this for my son, not for rock and roll." September 23rd, 1965, the taping of the episode. Dino, Desi, and Billy arrive at NBC Studios in Burbank. They're excited but nervous. This is national television. Dean Martin's show. 20 million viewers. Dino hasn't told his bandmates how much his father hates their music. He's kept it vague. Dad's old-fashioned. He doesn't really get rock and roll. But standing in the wings watching his father's show, Dino realizes this could go very, very wrong. Dean's opening monologue includes several jokes about rock music, about long hair, about loud guitars. The audience laughs, but Dino feels sick. Then comes the introduction. Dean walks to center stage, his trademark drink in hand, that easy smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, our musical guests tonight are a young rock and roll band that's very popular with teenage girls. They've got a hit record, and I have absolutely no idea why." The audience laughs. Dino's stomach tightens. Dean continues, "Now I'm told this music is called rock and roll. I've been listening to their record, trying to understand it, and I think my record player might be broken, because it just sounds like noise to me." More laughter. Dino looks at Desi and Billy. They're both pale. What is happening? But Dean's tone shifts, gets softer, more serious. "But you know what? These three young men work very hard. They practice, they write songs, they perform. And even though I don't understand their music, even though it sounds like organized chaos to me, I respect that they're doing something they love." Dean pauses, looks directly at the camera. "One of these young men is my son Dino, and I've got to be honest, when he first told me he wanted to start a rock band, I said, 'Son, are you sure? Because I've heard that music and I'm not convinced it is music.'" The audience laughs, but it's warm laughter now, appreciative, but he was sure. He loves it. "And you know what I learned? Just because I don't understand something doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means I'm old." The audience laughs again, but there's applause too. People are connecting with this. "So tonight I'm going to do something I never thought I'd do. I'm going to introduce a rock band on my show, and I'm going to smile, and I'm going to clap, and I'm probably not going to understand a single word they're singing, but I'm proud of them, especially the one in the middle." Dean's voice catches slightly. "So please welcome Dino, Desi, and Billy." The audience erupts in applause. And when Dino walks onto that stage, when he sees his father standing there clapping, smiling, Dino has tears in his eyes. Because Dean Martin, the man who hated rock and roll more than anything, had just publicly supported his son in front of 20 million people. Dino, Desi, and Billy perform their hit song. The audience loves it. Girls in the studio audience scream. It's everything a 1960s rock performance should be. And Dean stands in the wings watching. His face shows exactly what he's thinking. "I still don't understand this music, but my son is good at it." When the song ends, Dean walks back onto the stage, puts his arm around Dino, makes a joke. "Well, my ears are still ringing, but I think you boys did great." The audience laughs. Dean shakes hands with Desi and Billy, makes a joke about their hair being too long. Classic Dean Martin comedy. The director calls cut. The cameras stop. The studio audience starts leaving. And Dean pulls Dino aside, away from the cameras, away from the crew, just the two of them. Dean puts both hands on Dino's shoulders, looks him directly in the eyes. "Your music is terrible, son. I mean that it's noise. I don't understand it. I don't like it, and I probably never will." Dino's face falls, but Dean isn't finished. "But you're wonderful, and I'm so damn proud of you. Not because of the music, but because you found something you love, and you're working hard at it, and you're good at it. That's all that matters." Dean's grip tightens on Dino's shoulders. I don't have to like rock and roll to be proud of you for doing what makes you happy. Dean pulls Dino into a hug. A real hug, the kind fathers give when they mean it. I love you, kid, even if your music gives me a headache. Dino laughs through tears. I love you too, Dad. That moment, that private conversation after the cameras stopped, that defined their relationship for the next 30 years. Dean never learned to like rock and roll. He continued making jokes about it on his show, continued calling it noise, but he never stopped supporting Dino, never stopped being proud, never stopped showing up. When Dino, Desi and Billy released more records, Dean bought copies, played them once, said still terrible, but congratulations. When the band performed concerts, Dean would sometimes show up backstage, tell Dino, you were great out there. I still don't know what you were singing, but you were great. The episode of The Dean Martin Show featuring Dino, Desi, and Billy aired in late September 1965. The ratings were huge, over 22 million viewers, one of the highest-rated episodes of the season, and the mail NBC received was overwhelmingly positive. Not about the music, about Dean's introduction, about a father supporting his son, even when he didn't understand his son's choices. Parents wrote, "Thank you for showing us how to support our kids, even when we don't agree with them." Teenagers wrote, "My dad hates my music too, but watching Dean support Dino gave me hope that my dad might come around." Dean never responded to the letters publicly, but privately, he told his writers, maybe we should do more of that, less jokes, more heart. Dino, Desi and Billy continued as a band until 19. They had several more hits, toured extensively, were genuinely successful. Dino eventually moved on from music, became an Air National Guard pilot, later became an actor, had a successful career doing what his father did, but in his own way. Dean and Dino remained close until Dino's tragic death in 1987, when his F-4 Phantom jet crashed during a military training flight. Dean never recovered from losing Dino. That loss contributed to Dean's decline and eventual death in 1995. But in those years between 1965 and 1987, Dean and Dino had something special, a relationship built on mutual respect, on understanding that love doesn't require agreement. Dean never learned to like rock and roll, but he learned something more important. Being a good father means supporting your kids' dreams, even when those dreams sound like noise to you. Years later in the 1980s, a reporter asked Dean about that 1965 episode, about introducing Dino's rock band, even though Dean hated rock music. Dean's answer was classic Dean Martin. I hated the music, still do, but I loved my son, still do. And between loving your kid and hating their music, loving your kid wins every time, even if their music gives you a headache. That's the lesson of Dean and Dino, not about rock and roll, not about generation gaps, but about parenthood. You don't have to understand your kids, you don't have to like what they like, you don't have to agree with their choices, but you do have to support them, show up for them, be proud of them. Dean Martin did that on national television in front of 20 million people, and then again privately when the cameras stopped. Your music is terrible, but you're wonderful. 7 words, the perfect summary of unconditional parental love, the perfect summary of what it means to be a father. Dean Martin made a career out of looking like he didn't care about anything, the drink, the cigarette, the easy smile, the effortless cool. But when it came to his son, Dean cared about everything. He cared enough to put aside his pride, to introduce music he hated on his own show, to tell 20 million people that being a good father was more important than being right. And decades later, that moment still resonates, because every parent faces that moment, when your kid chooses something you don't understand, something you don't like, something that sounds like noise to your ears, and you have a choice. You can reject it, mock it, try to change their mind, or you can do what Dean Martin did, support them anyway, show up anyway, be proud anyway, because at the end of the day, your relationship with your kid matters more than your opinion about their music. Dean Martin understood that, and on a Thursday night in September 1965, he showed the world what it really means to be a father, not by agreeing with your son, but by loving him enough to let him be himself, even when that self plays organized noise. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.